Hi, it's Kirby Summers. It is Sunday, January 12th, 2025. And usually on Sundays is when my newsletter, which I host now on Substack exclusively. I used to have one in the early days hosted on a different platform, and then I began one on Substack, which actually gives me more features, such as it allows people to comment on the articles. It allows me to respond to them and answer questions. It allows, it's just like there's just such ease of use that I then migrated over from the one I began in 2019. Believe it or not, it's now 5.5 years. It's crazy. And so I regularly update, sometimes more than twice a week, but definitely on Sundays, typically at 5 o'clock Eastern time, because I'm in New York. I upload an article. Now, I uploaded the article yesterday, Saturday, because while I was working on it, whenever I work on something that's very, I'm going to say, sensitive, I have a lot of interference with my computer and my all of my electronics. And so I was beginning to feel that I was not going to be able to put something up there, and specifically the information I needed to share in my series, Weird Scenes in Liverpool. And so I just put it up early. I put it up yesterday, and I'm happy I did. I have been going down a rabbit hole that popped up when Mike Jeffries was arrested. You may know Mike Jeffries as the quote former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, which is a company owned by Wexy person. And I love, I forget who what your thing is, but when you were like, yeah, I love how you call him Wexy person. Well, he's Wexy person because clearly we're not allowed to say a lot of things ever. Before I get started, I want to thank, and really, I am so touched that so many of you have supported my work, and that the minute I said, hey, I can accept super thanks, you guys just, you just went for it. And that shows me um, that you have my back, that you're there, that we are on this journey together. It's like a journey of truth, and you are following me even when I have to spell or use a different word. You guys are like incredibly the most important people in my life. You have become my extended family. That said, I want to thank Jan Angela 1725 for the super thanks for my last podcast. I want to thank Sarah R., who has made it her mission to go to my website for the third time, people, for the third time, and make a contribution to me there. Sarah, girl, I love you. I love you. I mean, yeah, this platform keeps 40%. The intermediary keeps about 10. Typically, content creators keep, just shy of 50%. But with you, I only have to deal with the intermediary, which is PayPal in my case, and it just takes, less than 10%. So I get to keep, minimum 90-ish percent. So, but everyone who has done this, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Not least of all, I want to read to you a comment left by Kay regarding my latest series, which is like a continuation of 7. So I started sort of like, now I'm calling them chapters because I think I'm going to turn this into a book. Whether or not I sell it on Amazon, I'm not sure. I do have most of my books available on my website, and so I uploaded the balance of chapter 7 of Weird Scenes in Liverpool yesterday, as I said, and she wrote, "I'm breathless. I feel as if I'm starting to connect through this line of enterprise of evil." And frankly, I love that phrase, enterprise of evil, because that's what we're exploring. We're not exploring one or two or three people. And these are not one-offs. None of the stuff that I have been discussing on my channel and the things that you have been interested in, they're not one-offs. They're all interconnected, like I have been telling you forever. And then I'm going to finish what she said to me. "I'm flabbergasted that you live through these clouds of insanity and survive. You are one of the best researchers and writers ever." So clearly, I read that, first thing in the morning, and it made my day. It made my day. And yeah, I'm pausing because it is emotional to know that finally I'm breaking through. That said, something else happened. I have people who are really great and they've been following my work for a very long time. But someone sent me sort of like and let's see if I have it here. I thought I put it here, but let me just see if I can find it. So, well, I think I might be able to remember it. I'm not sure that I even have it here. I thought I did. And I can't just stop this in order to get that. So the world that I'm studying is connected th through, it's a tight circle. It's multi-generational, and most of the people are spies. Even when they have an outward job as something else, they're still a spy, and they have that job as a cover. The other thing that happens in the intelligence world is that low-hanging fruit is left. And especially in the age of the web, where so many people are trying to connect dots and find the answers, there's just there are things that may be true, but they're left there because what's really true is typically scrubbed, and you won't find it on the web. You would have to do what I do, which is know some of the people personally, have heard about certain things, have literally watched something, have enough of the pieces available to you that after a period of time, you recognize patterns and you can look at information and decide if it is worth exploring or if this is another sort of like red herring. So someone, who is one of my favorite followers, sent me something that a podcaster was announcing and even tried to tell Elon Musk, and really why anybody would trust Elon Musk is beyond me. And more than that, I'm not going to say. I did a deep dive on him and his family and how I just showed a bunch of things, and it is on my Substack for those of you who are already members. It's there. You can I think it's got a search feature and it allows you to search for my articles there. And if you put in Elon Musk, it'll bring that specific one up so you guys can read it if you haven't had a chance or if you're new to my Substack. And so what he was saying was, oh, well, he was making the argument that President John F. Kennedy was made to disappear because he had rejected a certain proposal by AIPAC. Well, while that may be true, that's low-hanging fruit. It's everywhere on the internet, and it's not the reason he was made to disappear. It's just not the reason. If it were the reason, as I just left my friend a message in response to her link, I said to her, if this were true, this person's account on this platform, meaning X, would be gone, just like my account was made to disappear in November of 2022 when our dear friend Musk took over. That said, Jack Dorsey wasn't any different. I just was new to tweeting, and I did not understand that by sharing the kind of information that I used to share, and I used to do really long threads, which I don't do anymore, I decided to just keep all of the information that I probably would have shared on, uh, let's say X now. I put that in newsletters, and then whatever I can share, I share it either on my Patreon, uh, if it's something I can share verbally, and or I do that here. And here, as you have noticed, I have been using code words because, there is no such thing as free speech, like literally not in the US and not anywhere. If you step on enough toes, you're just not heard from again. And in my case, not to belabor the point, but I had 3 attempts on my life. Okay, I was kidnapped. I managed to escape on the third day. And then for some reason I remembered a fourth attempt, and it was during the time that I was an S slave. I became pregnant. And because I planned on having the baby, I told the person who turned me into that for himself, who was part of this group that I expose on a regular basis. I was concerned that because he was a billionaire, and clearly I wasn't married to him, nor did I have any intention to marry him, because he was a reminder of a world I wanted to forget. I, when I told him that I was with child, I lied to him, and I told him that it was someone else's. And I did that because I wanted to ensure that if I had the baby, he would never be able to come after me and take the child away from me. Now, once I did that, a lot of things, strange things began to happen, and I ended up having the A word. However, he knew all about that. And I almost died from the procedure. I was allowed to go home, and then I started to hemorrhage like uncontrollably. And I was able to get my sister and another friend to literally carry me into an emergency room where I was hospitalized for 5 days. And I almost didn't make it out. And so I only just recently, I would say in the last day or two, realized that that was probably the first time the attempt to make me disappear happened. So I'm going to have to count that as 4 that I'm aware of, and I'm sure there's some that I'm not aware of. And so when someone like myself survives, there's a lot of there are a lot of things we have to be uber careful about. All right. Hence why I'm uber careful on this platform. And I always suggest people come onto my Substack or my Patreon, and why I really don't go into DMs much unless I know someone for a number of years. I don't DM. I don't allow anyone to really contact me. It's really difficult to get through to me on a personal level because I have to be aware based on the fact that so many people were placed into my life. So not unlike what happened to Rose McGowan, who, as you know, was outing Harvey Weinstein in her book. And then, of course, Harvey's attorney, David Boies, hired the firm we know as Black Cube in order to follow, distract, interfere, and insert people into her life to pretend that they were her friends to find out what was going on. And so I too have had people insert themselves into my life. Hence why it's so I have such a high barrier into allowing anyone to contact me personally. That said, what I wanted to do today was basically say that through my investigation, again, which started with Mike Jeffries and Wexy, I've gone back in time and I have been investigating the world of the Beatles. And I have discovered that they played a tangential role in the unaliving of John F. Kennedy. You will hear that from me first, and perhaps the only time you will hear that from me. That said, I'm going to read a couple of things from part 7, which I think I'm going to use the photograph I used for part 7 as a cover for this one, which basically shows the Beatles during one of their first trips, their attorney, their manager, Brian Epstein. It shows JFK. It shows Robert Maxwell, who also played a role, by the way. Yeah, Robert Maxwell, I have discovered, played a role in the unaliving of JFK. I've said it here. This is what I have discovered. And then the other person that I discovered in my ongoing research into this matter was Roy Cohn. And no, not just as it pertains to J. Edgar Hoover, as other people have stopped there when it comes to Roy Cohn, and or they just connect him to Donald Trump. No, I connect him to the unaliving of JFK in a certain way. And these people are all connected and they're all part of the intelligence apparatus that continues to run our respective governments. Okay. So then I'm just going to read to you the first paragraph right now of my article. Having deeply embedded myself into the seedy, even seamy world inhabited by the Beatles, promoted as the clean-cut Fab Four, I discovered the most unnerving nest of spies. For example, the infamous Roy Cohn pops up in the most unexpected place, while others who had been intentionally airbrushed out of history with their misdeeds hidden away from the public eye, well, I decided to rouse them up from their graves. In this series, like the title of a James Bond film, they will have to die another day. The other thing that I did, because I adore Professor Hamamoto. He is one of the kindest people I've ever met, one of the nicest people, and he's very smart, and everyone knows that I adore Professor Hamamoto. However, he does not buy into the fact that the Beatles were a construct. Uh, and they actually were. I mean, we are discovering today, for example, that Jay-Z, Sean Diddy, Puffy Combs, Love, Beyonce, they're all constructs. They are shaped and put out to the public and given a platform. Whereas, let's say somebody like Justin Bieber initially went along because he was too young to learn how to fight back and say no. And if that had been the case, if Justin Bieber, by the way, would have said no to the alleged abuse that he had to endure by all of these grown men, allegedly, we would have never known his name. But he went along with the program. And then at some point, I guess he decided he didn't want to go along with the program. And he was destined to be, frankly, bigger than Michael Jackson, who sadly went along with the program. Yeah, everyone goes along with the program. And I think you guys know what I'm saying. And so when Justin Bieber decided he wasn't going to go along with the program anymore, well, what happened? Suddenly he wasn't making music anymore. You weren't seeing videos of him. he kind of disappeared into the background. And I have another podcast about the Baldwin family, and I have more details on my Substack showing that he was intentionally placed into a marriage to keep an eye on him, and to sort of keep tabs on what he says and he doesn't say. But so to get back to Professor Hamamoto, I've listened to a couple of his shows where he will say, no, the Beatles were not a creation of Theodore Adorno, who actually worked, he's a Tavistock guy. And I have found a photograph, perhaps the only photograph, showing Adorno with Paul McCartney, George Harrison, John Lennon. And what Adorno did, which again, I'm going to explain how this is used to hide the truth. So Adorno, basically, to push himself away, let's say, from rumors and or whistleblowers, whether they were happening in present day or they would have happened in the future, and from really the scandalous truth that the much beloved Fab Four were not just, they didn't just happen, they didn't just come along. They're a construct. And so what he did was he endlessly ranted about his hate for the Beatles and for pop music. And if Shakespeare's phrase, doth protest too much, comes to mind, that would be, as far as where I sit, a perfect descriptor for what he did. And he fooled many people. He told Accenti magazine in 1965, what can be urged against the Beatles is simply that what these people have to offer is something that is retarded in terms of its own objective content. The way that I want to sort of give you something to compare this to is that Prince Andrew is the only person in the Jeff circle to have been, let's say, at least publicly shamed, the story told over and over again in thousands of articles endlessly. And so what does that do? I'm going to tell you exactly what that does. It takes the focus away from the royal family having anything to do with this ongoing situation involving people that are not of the age where they can actually give consent. That is what that does. Okay, did you get what I just said? That by Prince Andrew being put in front, that in fact he protected his the entire royal family. Because then people were like, oh, his mother paid, was our tax dollars. So not only does it have other tangents that the public can focus their attention on, with the help of your friendly mainstream media, Mockingbird, don't forget your Mockingbird press is always there to guide you into what you should think and what you should be upset about. What it truly did was it took the focus away from the royal family as having anything to do with that seedy side of the world and with Jeff. And I'm here to tell you that that is a psychological operation that is conducted on us, the public. So in Adorno's case, as in Prince Andrew's case, they served a purpose, right? They made someone look the other way. I found enough information to show that Adorno was in fact working with William Paley. And in my last podcast on this channel, I spoke about William Paley as being one of the founders of the three-letter agency, as having sort of within his father's original company, which was cigars, right? And they talked about how the cigar industry was impacted during Prohibition and how the Paley name is absent, let's say, from the Brofman name, from the Kennedy name, that were also impacted during Prohibition, but by the way, which allowed them to make millions, if not billions of dollars, right? So the Paley name is absent from that, but it should actually be part of that. And I was the first person to bring, and again, I hate to pat myself on the back, but I work night and day in order to connect these dots that nobody else is bringing to you. And so if I sound super excited because I found something that somebody else hasn't found or bothered to find, and sometimes I do wonder if we're all on the same page or if we are in fact infiltrated. And I'm beginning to believe that we are in fact infiltrated in the indie media. And I'm part of the indie media, but I'm also a victim, a survivor, a researcher, and thank goodness I survived 4 attempts on my life so that I can be here today and share this with you. And so I included a photo of Adorno with the Beatles, and there's only one, and I tried to trace to see if I can find any others anywhere else, and I could not. And I know that, let's say, my dear friend Professor Hamamoto doesn't want to believe that the Beatles, and he plays the guitar, he's a chill guy, and he loves them, and he just does not believe it. And he will every now and then on his podcast from out of nowhere say, well, Coleman was wrong. Adorno didn't, and he just goes on in that vein. And I have to respectfully disagree with him. And I have other people on my Substack who are major Beatles fans. In fact, I was a Beatles fan. I would go to Strawberry Fields here in Central Park, sit there, like hundreds of times and think about, and then there's always somebody playing uh music with a guitar singing Beatles songs, and they sit there all day long and they play Beatles song. And despite the fact that music is no longer allowed in Central Park for a number of years, for some odd reason, it's allowed in Strawberry Fields, which is just across the street from the Dakota, where Lennon lived with Yoko Ono and with Sean, their son. And so, yeah, I too am very disappointed. However, I also recall telling you that, and this I discovered again, it's just, oh man, that Harvey Weinstein got his start with the Beatles at the age of 16. Once he left them, he already had the habit of greeting women or minors or whatever, because he was, unlike what the media has put forward about him, uh, basically, I'm going to use the phrase coming on to in a very aggressive way. I'm going to add to grown women. Nothing has been said about the minors and or about the male component, right? However, once he left the Beatles, he had this already as a practice where he would greet people, ask them to give him a massage. He had the whole thing down pat after he left working for the Beatles. So this pattern that we are now hearing, let's say about, let's say only within the last 5.5 years, 6 years, well, no, the Weinstein story came out in 2017. So we've only been hearing about this for 8 years, and not that often, right? Because every time we hear about something, it's a one-off. And by the way, on Amazon, suddenly there is a so-called documentary on Sean Diddy Puffy Combs, and he too is a one-off, right? Oh, this is what he did, and there's no mention of anyone else, and come on, let's say no to gaslighting. Let's say no to gaslighting. I know that I completely unsubscribed from Netflix And I just do my own research. And I know all of you don't have time to do your own research. That's why you can listen to me. Because at least the stuff I tell you, you can find if you put in a good decade, you will find that I'm giving you accurate information. It's just going to take you a lot of time to sort through documents and film and look at photographs and know who is who and what's going on and what the date was and what happened on that date. Because what I do is I really look at everything very carefully. I examine where was this photograph taken? What was the date? What was happening in the world on that date? What happened the day before? What happened the day after? You know, like I just go through like an extensive analysis of every piece of information that I am able to collect as a dot. And I thank you you're gonna know who you are because you were like, thanks for all the dots. And thank you for noticing that these are dots. And but they're like, in my view, they're more like mountains because these are not just dots. While I'm a dot connector, I'm moving mountains, connecting them, uh showing that this is massive. This is massive. This is bigger than the iceberg that the Titanic hit and, you know, which destroyed it and the lives of many people. And that too is presumed to have been, alleged to have been an intentional accident. Who knows? But some very important people went down in that. Um, and so, yeah, I was able to connect Adorno with William Paley, who we know began CBS, one of the three initial television stations in the United States, and CBS had a record division, which of course was headed by Clive Davis, who of course went on to quote discover Sean Diddy Puffy Combs and become his mentor. Well, listen, guys, I would love for you to let me know what you think about the information that I just presented, and maybe I will see you over on my Substack. Have a good day. Bye.